Here we start. So, guys, hello. Here today we have with Jay Sparks. Today we are going to talk about how you can make so that you can maximize the growth of your company. Because there are many ways you can do that, but Jay has a pretty good idea and a really original one on how you can do that. So, Jay, tell a bit about you. What do you do exactly, and what you want to talk about today?
Sure. Well, yeah, thank you for having me, Gabriel. I'm really impressed with you and what you do, and the conversations we had before. You really stood out right away. So, um, I'm currently I have a commercial finance company. So I help small businesses get funds when the banks are not able to fund them. So I'm able to fund about 80% of the small businesses that cannot get traditional loans here in the United States, and then I also help visionaries implement their ideas. Now, I think that's the piece that captured your imagination a little bit. I've been in the business world since 1990. So unfortunately, I've learned a lot of the wrong way to do things. I'm very much a cautionary tale in some ways. Don't do what I did. But what I want to do is just make sure I share this with people so that people like yourself who are already doing well, you don't make the same mistakes that I have. Because a lot of the things looking back, if I knew what I knew now, um, part of this is experience, but part of it is also just that science is constantly evolving. And the things we know about how the brain operates is really amazing. And I never thought it would necessarily have applications in how we do business, right? Because business, you're trying to, make money and keep your clients happy. But if you don't understand how your brain is hardwired, you are going to put yourself in a position where it's going to be very difficult for you to succeed. And I've always really loved seeing people fulfill their potential. So I don't know where you want to start, but there's a couple different places where I think we spoke about last that you were interested in. I'd love
Yes,
to
exactly.
expand on that.
Last time we actually talked about how, I don't want to spoil the thing, but
Okay.
that you have different kind of mindset that you need
Yeah.
to align in order to best
Yeah.
succeed in business. And tell us more about that.
Sure. Well, this is something that's interesting because a lot of this, like personal development, it's all about attitude and approach, and it's not really dynamic, and it can change moment to moment. I never really liked it because I'm a hard sciences guy. If I can't see it, feel it, touch it, it doesn't really exist. And I thought a lot of it just didn't really make sense or apply, or it couldn't be repeated, right? So I couldn't repeat it over and over again. It worked in certain situations, but didn't work. So I came across the Kairos Cognition Group. Frank Soper is the man that runs it. He also is a part in Getting Things Done, which is a personal productivity system. And he's figured out how our brains are hardwired. So basically, it's like first principles in physics for your brain. So, for instance, at least the people studied in the United States, about 60% of the people studied in the United States, their cognitive preference is sequential. So they think in terms of, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's very linear in how they think. About 40% of the population thinks associatively. So they don't think in a straight line, but they think this idea, which reminds them of this and reminds them of that. So you have
Mm,
this kind of creative process, and you have people that are there very much in line. And the thing is, it's your brain is hardwired. So you can't change this. This is how you are. This is who you are. And someone like me, I'm in the middle. So I have the best of both and I have the worst of both. So I didn't realize this until very, very recently. So the way this manifests itself is that we probably know some people, or maybe, being a creative yourself, Gabriel, you may be one of these,
yeah,
you always have a lot of ideas, and you have another idea, and you have another idea, and you don't seem to get some things done, right? Or
yeah,
someone else comes in and gets it done before you get it done, right? And it's very frustrating for you.
yeah. I
Or
see
you
that.
may be the person that's kind of the associative person, or you may be the sequential person that works really hard, and the process is always completed and it's always done, but you're never getting anywhere. It seems like you're kind of spinning your wheels and not going anywhere. So you really need, two. You need the person that can see the future. You need the person that can actually get there, right? And they're not always the same person. Some people can do both, but more frequently, you're one or the other. And
Yeah.
one of
Do
the
you think you
professions.
can develop? Do you think you can develop the ability or the skills, because it's kind of a skill to not? I believe you cannot change the way you're kind of wired,
Yeah.
but can you at least learn a bit on how to become a bit like the other type so you can best succeed, and then you can have specialists that are like that, I guess, to do the best of the work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what I thought is, like, probably a lot of people, when I was younger, I thought for me to graduate in life, if I really wanted to have the big job, I had to be like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, right? Because they're visionaries. They have genetic gifts that not only give them high IQ, but give them this ability to assimilate lots of information. Um, and so I was trying to kind of stay in that world, and that's really not who I am, right? I'm what's called an integrator. So I kind of sit in between both worlds. So the associative person, if you're thinking about big ideas, what that person needs is they need someone that can put guardrails up for them. Because if you're always going on to a new idea, you never get anything done. And for some of these ideas, no matter how good they are, you really have to go kind of deep to actually make sure they become real, right?
Mm.
And for the people that are kind of sequential in their preference, you need to give them permission to try other things, right? Because they have to, because the same process over and over again that doesn't necessarily get you anywhere, right?
Exactly.
So what I didn't realize was that instead of trying to be like these creative people, I just need to understand them well enough to understand their idea, and then I could translate it to people that actually love doing them. Because a lot of people that love doing like accounting, and they love the numbers, and they love doing the process, and they know what the process is going to be. And this has nothing to do with IQ, by the way. It's not like associate people are up here and sequential people are down here, because you use your full IQ no matter what your preference is.
Mm.
I think in this country, in the United States, the only profession I'm aware of that is mainly one type is medicine. Medicine is almost exclusively in this country sequential thinkers.
What
So
do you think is
clearly, in
that
this country,
it's that way?
yeah. So in this country, to be a doctor, you need to be the top of your class. You need to be the smartest, right? So it has nothing to do with IQ. But when you think of how medicine is practiced, it's these massive decision trees. So you got to follow a sequence, but it's very complex. Like, you think of what a surgeon has to go through, all the different things that can happen, but they're pretty much the same thing. When this bleeds this way, you follow these certain steps and you stop the bleeding, right?
Mm.
Whereas in your world, in creative world, there is no one process, right? You need to be very fluid, and you need to be okay with ambiguity, right? And the
Yes.
sequential person isn't going to be okay with that. So you need to kind of marry the two, and that's something that's a real challenge. So I work with some really smart people that know their idea is going to work, but they don't have the kind of the wiring, if you will, to stay focused
Mm.
on the processes to get it done. They don't like it. It's not fun. And many of these people too, they have low empathy, right? So they're not really good with interactions. So they need someone that can do that. They need a team. And this is the other thing, that this is a mistake I made a while back working with one of these associative people, because they have the big idea. Many times people try to put them at the top of the organization, and that's a mistake, because they should not have people reporting to them. That's a challenge. They need to be thinking. They need to be
Mm.
thinking about their ideas, and they need to have an integrator, someone like me, or like a chief operating officer, or can have the title of president or something similar. And all the staff reports to that person, right? So that and things will go much better. Again, this is something in this country. A good example of the visionary integrator pairing is Walt and Roy Disney. Um, Walt Disney was the visionary, and he had all the great ideas, but we would never know about Disney World without Roy Disney. Roy made everything work. He was
Mm.
able to translate all these incredible ideas and make sure we have all these, these great amusement parks all over the world now. And even after Walt Disney died, Roy was still able to run the business that still exists today. So sometimes it's not trying to change who you are; it's just trying to make sure you're in a position where you can you can succeed. So I just
Yeah.
talked to someone this morning, Gabriel, and he was applying for like a sales position, and it was clear that he was very fact based, but he couldn't really communicate his enthusiasm, the emotion.
Yes.
So he was going to have a real tough time communicating with people that are kind of emotion based, because he just doesn't. That wasn't part of how he sees the world, right? So the good thing is he would be a great CEO, and he can hire
Mm.
people that have really good social skills, right, to do that part of the job. So if he didn't know that, he would be struggling. He would be trying to make himself something that he's not. It's kind of like if you're an introvert and I put you on a stage every day where you have to be in front of 100 people, you're going to be really unhappy and stressed.
Yeah.
So again, it's just trying to find out what, how are you wired? And then you're going to want to see what are you interested in, and you can kind of find a good role. Whereas we trying to go to the role and, and try to make it work in this country anyways. And that made me miserable for years. And I never understood why, Gabriel. So, again, it was eye-opening for me to kind of learn that about myself.
Yeah, actually, that's really eye-opening. And so actually, to maximize the success, it's pretty much obligated to have a team with different capabilities and skills, actually. Don't you think that?
Yeah, I don't know, but and I study success, right? Like many of us, right? I
Mm,
don't not aware of a single instance where an individual has succeeded by themselves on a large level. It just can't happen. So the good thing is that if you don't feel like you know the right thing to say, right? And if you're one of those people, right? It's like, geez, I don't get the same reaction that Gabriel gets when I'm talking to this person, or
yeah, I see
after a
that. Yeah.
certain amount of time, people stop calling me back. Like, what's going on here? Right. And someone else, you see, they walk in the room and all of a sudden, they don't know anybody, but 5 minutes later, everyone loves them and they're laughing and like they're best friends. Like, how the hell can that happen? So some people have the skill, some people don't, the relationship piece. The point is if you don't have it, you can learn to do it better, of course, but that doesn't need to be, you don't need to turn your weakness into a strength, because most of us, our weaknesses are genetic. You really can't change them. If you spend a lot of time trying to fix them, you're going to be frustrated. So figure out kind of how you hardwired, and then what are you good at? And then I think that will solve a lot of problems for you. Because then once you're good at something, you learn to love it. Right. So I think following your passion leads you astray sometimes. But if you can do something you're
Yes,
good, it's always fun when you win. Right. I mean, it's just, again,
exactly.
not everybody is focused on that. But, that's another thing, too, that I found. This is something I found in graduate school. I think we talked about a little bit, Gabriel, is if
Yes.
you look at the filter of achievement, relationships, and power, we all typically have one of those as kind of the driver. And for me, that's achievement. Like if something's not being done correctly as I think it can be, it bothers me. The next thing is I want to make sure everybody around me is enjoying themselves and likes working with me, and I like working with them, and we have a good working relationship. And the last piece is the power. Like I don't need to be in control. I'm very happy to sell Gabriel's ideas to the world, right? That doesn't hurt my ego. Um, but some people are the opposite. Some people, they really need to be in control and get the credit. And then, the other things are secondary. And the problem with that is if you're an achievement person like I am, and I'm working with a power-based person, that can be like oil and water. And I never understood that, because you think people are always like you, right? But if I'm trying to do things the way I think is best, and the other person just wants credit, that can be a big problem,
Mm.
right? Because no matter how good my answer is, if they want credit and they're not getting it, they're just going to be unhappy. So once I realized that, then I realized, that I can kind of change how I communicate with certain people. And none of these are bad, by the way. It's just they just are, and
They're just different. So
yeah,
yes, you kind of have to find the best way to communicate with the people. That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it really revolves around a lot of it is not dynamic, right? I mean, if your brain is hardwired a certain way, you need to know that and honor that. And in our education system, we don't talk about that at all, Gabriel. It's really crazy. We have to figure it out ourselves. And most people don't, and they wonder why they're really unhappy and they're really unsuccessful.
Mm.
There's a lot of, brilliant people or hardworking people out there, and they're really not getting what they deserve because they're focused on the wrong area, and they don't know their options, and they don't know that they can learn different things. They
Yes,
can.
you're right. You're definitely right. One of the best class I had when I was still in high school, not high school, but I was in college was,
Yeah.
yes, psychology, things
Yep.
like that, psychology, human relationships. Those things I usually liked it the most because it gave me awareness on me
Yeah.
and people's around me.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty important. That's something that we don't have enough is, yeah, as you talked about, get good at what you are and actually identify and don't try to fit in a general thing because as I told myself, even two persons in the same position may have a totally different mindset and a way to talk to them. And actually, even if they have the same position, they may not have the same skills. And that's big.
Yeah, no, no, that's true. That's true. And also, with all the social media now, I've noticed that our lack of empathy is really amazing. Because if you don't have empathy, it's going to be very difficult for you to sell your service because you really have to communicate from the other person's point of view, right? Like I have to know what Gabriel thinks. I have to know what Gabriel likes. It doesn't matter what I
Yeah.
like. It doesn't matter what I know, right? Because like in a sales context, you can't win an argument. I can't tell
Mm,
Gabriel, you're not very smart. And what are you going to say? Oh, thanks for telling me I'm not smart, Jay. Great. I'm not buying your product, right? It
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. So I need to figure out, what do you know to be true and what are your issues, right? And if I don't understand how you think and I don't understand kind of what your priorities are, it's going to be very difficult for me to figure that out. So my only thing that's left is now I just have to pitch you on something that is good for me,
mm,
because it's going to make money for me. So I'm just going to tell you, you need to buy this, right? And I see a lot of people doing
exactly.
this in the marketing area. They have a process and they can describe a product or a service, or they can use social media, but they don't talk to the business owner and really understand, well, what's the end goal here? What is this business owner trying to do? He's not trying to get more likes on Facebook, right? He's not trying to get
Mm,
more, likes on Instagram, right? He's trying to sell the product, and what's getting in the way of that, and how can what you're doing, Gabriel, help him? How can you get the message out to people that he's not getting it to right now in a way that they really appreciate it? Because people
exactly.
shop information, but they don't buy information, right? And that's something
Mm,
that I didn't realize when I was younger. I was trying to just overwhelm people with information, and that works for some people, but for a lot of people, they don't buy that way, right? You need to hit the emotions, which is why stories, video. I know you're very good with that with filmmaking. That's probably the most valuable thing because, um, you know, the picture and the storyline, as long as the audio is good, right? The audio
yeah,
has to be
exactly.
good. The message really comes through, and that's why I think there's probably a lot of people in middle management in the United States. They're very frustrated because they're working very hard, and they see other people succeeding far more in terms of financial terms than they are, and they don't really understand why, because they don't understand the power of the story and of empathy, and those things are really important now.
Mm,
The marketing right now is becoming much more individualized, so people like you who can connect to individuals like me, really get to know me and figure out what makes me unique and special, and then if you communicate to other people, you know, uh, it's very much kind of the pull concept, right? People will just raise their hand. I don't have to go out and be cold calling people. If we communicate correctly, they'll raise their hand and say, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize someone did that. That's exactly what I need. I have all these great ideas, and I can never build the right team around me, and I'm frustrated." Jay already does that. That's awesome. Or if someone's looking to get their message out and they don't really know how to use the different marketing systems, and they know video is really important, and they read your story, it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize Gabriel did that. That's exactly what I need. I never thought about marrying those two things together, but that's it,
mm,
right? And then at that point,
exactly.
Gabriel, price is inconsequential. Not that they don't care what you charge, but if you charge $100, $1,000, $2,000 versus something slightly less, it's irrelevant, right? They're not worried about that. They're worried
Exactly.
about,
Because
hey,
you
yeah,
tapped into the problem and the
yeah,
solution
yeah,
is worth more than the price.
yeah, yeah. I was just
Exactly.
get this. I was talking to this arborist, right? This woman, they cut down trees. So there are some people, and I'm in the part of the country. There's lots of trees, right? So trees are always coming down. We just had a storm, so there's lots of trees down. You got to cut them down. And while you're cutting that tree down, you cut other trees down. And one of the things that um, so they get paid to cut by the tree, but you
Mm,
don't want to cut some trees down. So for instance, if you cut a bunch of pine trees down and you're in a flood zone, you're going to have more water there because those trees are not going to be pulling the water out of the ground. So you
yeah,
cut the trees down, and a year later you're wondering why your yard is flooded. Well, it's because you didn't talk to someone who knew what they were doing, so you couldn't take that into account. So yes, you got a cheap service, but you got what you paid for, right? If you had someone that was actually a good salesperson and figured out what you needed, which was a dry yard, but you didn't want so many trees, maybe you could put different trees in there, or maybe it would be a different solution, right?
exactly. Yeah.
We get very focused on ourselves and what's good for us, as opposed to focus on your client and what you need, and you can have more business than you can ever handle if you can do that effectively. And I think you're one of those people, Gabriel, that can do that. If you're not there already, I don't know exactly how things are going right
Thanks a
now,
lot for
but
that, Jay. And I had a question from since we started. I had a question pop in my mind, and I think it's more complicated than one single answer. But let me ask you, like, do you think there is, when you talked about the way people are wired,
yeah.
do you think there is actually best combination? Like, do you think like the best leaders are usually that way? Do you think there is a picture of, okay, this is the best kind of leader, or is it more complicated than that?
Um, well, it's I guess it depends on how you define best and what kind of leader you need, right? Because nobody
Hmm.
has all the attributes. So that's one thing. And then not all leadership positions need that high IQ, right? Because that's one of the limiting factors. There's of the four types of intelligence, the first three types, there's maybe a 300 or 400% difference from the bottom end to the top end, which is significant, but it's not enough to really, give me an advantage over you, for instance, or you an advantage over me. But the
Hmm.
fourth type, there's like a 64,000% difference from the bottom to the top. That's massive. Then people like
Yeah.
Elon Musk and Bill Gates, they're at the top of that piece. So that's definitely a differentiator. But for most of the normal roles out there, no, there isn't one type, but you need to know what your weaknesses are, and you need to know how your brain works so that you set the right team. Because, like we said earlier, you need a team, but what
Hmm.
type of team do you need? Right? You can't just get a bunch of the same type of people because you're going to have problems, and you can't get just a bunch of different people that when there's no kind of person to kind of help them interact, and then you got a different type of problem, right? So really, the key from a leadership standpoint is knowing yourself well, and then being clear on the vision, and being clear on the strategy and the training and how you're going to measure things, and what type of um, coaching are you going to have, because most organizations, there that's what's missing a lot is coaching, because
Hmm.
if you don't have coaching, then you don't complete the feedback loop. So a lot of
Yes.
times they'll say, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. Here's some training on how to do it. Here's some measurements so that we know that we're doing it. But that last little piece, a lot of things get missed because you don't sit there and talk to people like week to week. Like, Gabriel, how did it go last week? What are you doing today, Gabriel? Or, Gabriel, what are you thinking about doing tomorrow? Let's talk about that. Let me see what your plan is, right? And then the fourth type of conversation is, Gabriel, just how you doing? Right? How are things for you? Right? Are you happy? Or are things going well? Or are things not going well outside of work? Just so I kind of have an idea. And if I have all those pieces of information, and we have a back and forth conversation, if I'm your manager, then I think you can really move mountains. But many organizations don't have that type of management. They just
Yes.
expect Gabriel to go out and just do it, and you either do it or you don't. So, and the
Yeah,
leader
seems
needs
like
to
like
manage
it's
that.
like kind of awareness management that you are talking about.
Yeah,
You have to be
yeah,
aware about who you are as a leader. And I
yeah,
think, yeah, if I can try to find a solution to the question I had was, yeah, exactly. The best leaders have the best team.
yeah,
That's it. And
yeah,
they are also aware of who they are enough so they can find the right team that can fulfill on the vision or their skills that they have. They can
yeah.
complement it.
Yeah. So, like, for me, when I realized I'm never going to be a visionary, a true, like, one of the top ones, right? I realized, well, my job then is to find these visionaries and line up
Yeah.
behind them, right? And that can be a way that I lead, right? Because they need me, right? They really need me. Matter of fact, people like me are what limits them, because there aren't many visionaries out there. They're pretty rare in the population, right? Because you have to have the associative kind of hard wiring, and then you also have to have this extra kind of IQ piece. But the integrators, the people that kind of help them interface with the world and their teams, are limiting, because each visionary is different, right? And each team is different. So if you get that one person that can work on both of them, if you find a good one, you want to really hold on to them. But I think if one thing to learn here is, if you are that visionary, is that you don't need to do it all yourself, because if you do it all yourself, you're probably going to fail, or make a lot of work for yourself that you really don't need to do. You just need to be focused on, keep having those ideas and working on those. And the key is getting a key person that can be your chief operating officer or your president or whatever, and then make sure that they manage the team of people that you
Yeah.
build, right? Because I think, visionaries, when you're talking to a visionary or an associate person, you may even have pieces of this, Gabriel, because I know you're a creative and you probably are more associative. You get so many ideas, they just come at you, and you in mid sentence, you'll even interrupt yourself, right? Because you got another idea comes up and you want to get it
Yeah.
out, because if you don't speak it, say it to me, then you'll lose it because you go on to the other thing. So part of my job is to catch all of these, right, and put them down on paper and say, Gabriel, it's a good idea. I love it. We're not going to work on it right now, though. I'm going to put it down here and we'll redress it later, but we're going to finish that movie we just started, right? We'll get
Yeah.
into this project when we're done with that. Is that okay? Great. But if you're by yourself, all you're doing is you just get this new idea and you start it. And you got three other things that are half started. Then you start the fifth thing, the sixth thing, the seventh thing, and you never get anything done, right? Or people look at you as unreliable or flighty, or you're not good with details, or, maybe he's not really as smart as he thinks he is, right? Because they don't know. They don't see everything that's going on in your head. So
Yes.
all they know is if you're a sequential person, it's very easy for them to take an idea and then execute on it, right? So if you can't do that, they think you're basically dumber than they are, when actually the opposite is true. You just think differently, right? So, I never knew that, Gabriel. I feel kind of foolish, but I don't want other people to be burdened by that and let that slow them down. I think that, if you find, kind of how you think and what type of things you like to do, and then it's very easy to find the right people because they're out there. I was thinking about trying to find someone like you, and you just popped up. I recognized you immediately as you started talking, right? It was
Yeah.
really amazing. It's just a random conversation, but I'm very focused on the type of people I want to be around, and you're definitely one of them. So
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Jay. And actually, as people like you that I love to be around as well, because you open my mind to another way of thinking, and I see other processes, other things that I need to do, and that I don't see because, as you told, uh, like sometimes you don't see things the same way as others.
yeah,
And actually, it's not that you're dumber than they are. You just think differently. And
yes,
it's not the wrong way to think. And that's actually something that's really opened my mind today, is that it's not a wrong way to think. There is no wrong way to think. There is different ways of thinking that needs to be combined, whether it's education, idea production, creativity, and all those things like that. You need to align them in order to get a great finished product, whether it's a project, whether it's money, whether it's pretty much anything. I think it
yeah,
applies in life, basically.
yeah. Well, I mean,
And
so
it was
someone like
really
you,
valuable.
yeah, like someone like you in the United States school system, you may have been put in the lower classes, right? Because you're not sequentially focused. So in the U.S.,
Actually,
you memorize
actually, yeah,
things,
yeah.
and
What I had was like I was really, I would say, a creative mind. Like in school, I was always thinking about other things,
yeah, yeah,
ideas popping out. I I would say I had an advantage because I didn't have to work really hard to have good grades,
yeah,
but most of my time was spent outside of school. Even when I was
yeah,
inside, my body was inside. In my head, I was
yeah.
outside. Where?
Yeah, and that's such a waste. And if we could change our school system, people like you would be challenged in different ways, right? Like someone like me, I would like to spend part of my day with like someone like you, right, and all these ideas. But what
Mm,
I know now about how my brain's hardwired, then I have to spend another part of my day with kind of the regular, kind of sequential type things, because I like that too. Just like I'm
yes.
an introvert and an extrovert. I get energy from being around people, but I also get energy from being alone. Right. I never knew that. I was trying to be like the people I saw as successful and tried to mimic them. And I was constantly going down the wrong path and making myself unhappy. Right. And I spent years and years miserable, and there was no reason for it. If I'd known what I know today, I would have learned in these positions, but I would have moved out of them very quickly because they weren't
Mm,
really ultimately good for me. But I thought I could make it work. I thought I could fix it, and I would be as happy as this other person. And it really wasn't the case. Like doing what you're doing, I would love it because wow, Gabriel's so successful. I want to do what he does. I want to be like him and have his lifestyle. And at some point, I wouldn't like it. I would want to get into some of the details and the weeds and the repetitive things, right? That you probably hate, right? And instead of you trying to learn that, you just need to figure out a way to delegate that, or either not do it or hire someone that can do it for you. And now there's lots of those options. So not only do we know more about how we think and how we can take advantage of how we think. There's also lots of examples, lots of people that you can just literally mimic that are in your industry and are kind of fit your profile. And it's a very easy conversation. And once you've been down this road and failed, you're grateful when you get back on the right path. And at least in my case, I'm very happy to help anyone I can help, so they don't spend the time struggling that I did, thinking that I was broken. I thought that there was something wrong with me and I wasn't working hard enough. So I worked harder, right? I mean, that's doing the same thing, but just doing more of it
Mm,
doesn't fix anything, right? It wasn't until I
yeah.
realized how people thought and how I was the same or different depending on who I was comparing myself to, and then how I could really help them communicate with the world. Um,
And that's really a great calling. That's
yeah,
really a great calling, actually, because yeah, we all have a calling to help out people, and actually a great one is to making it so that other people don't make the same mistake as we did, and that's a
yeah,
great calling. I
yeah.
think we're gonna call it a day here.
Okay,
We have
great.
been spend we have been spending, I would say, around, yeah, a good 35
Okay.
minutes on how to, yeah, become a great leader. What would you say would be if you take one thing that they have to take in their life and apply it right now? What would that thing be?
One takeaway. Um, One takeaway would be that most of what's in your head is not real. It's not your doing, right? And I think that's a thing that was really fascinating to me, being someone who reads a lot and studies a lot. That most of these ideas in my head were they weren't real. They were things put in by someone else, and you really have a lot more control. So if you're unhappy right now and you don't like the thoughts in your head, just think of a better feeling thought, right? And that will start your journey to a new path and being happy. And then you'll be open, when you hear someone like me talking about something that's a little different that makes sense to you, or they hear you, Gabriel, right? They'll be a lot open. But I think one of my darkest moments is when I thought that this misery I was in the middle of was all that life was ever going to be, right? And it was
Yeah,
just awful. And then once I realized that I could completely control everything going on in my head, and I actually had a unique, I was an outlier in some ways because only probably 10% of the population has hard wiring like I do, and that could be a bad thing. But if I'm in the right situation, it can be a massive advantage. So as long as I'm working with people like you, Gabriel, and you implement your ideas, then I'm happy and you're happy, right? That's perfect. I just need to focus on finding people like you that are open to working with someone like me. So, it's dramatically changed my life. So, thank you for helping me think through some of these things. But I'm very happy to share it. And I hope that you got some value out of this, and this helps you on your journey, because it sounds like you're really doing some great things and making a lot of progress in a very short amount of time.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Thanks a lot for that. And I hope that the audience also got some huge value too. Personally, I had. Where can they reach out to you? If they can reach out to you, where do you want them to go?
Yeah, the best place is on LinkedIn. Look under James J Sparks. I'd love to connect with people all over the world, and anything I can do, I certainly will. And if I can't help you, I have a good network, and I'd love to introduce you to other people that would be equally willing to help you on your journey and help you with whatever you need.
Wow, that's great. Thanks a lot, Jay. And we're going to
Right.
call it today. I hope you guys had a lot of value. Please, please take time to put the notification, subscribe at whatever you do. Like, guys, I'm going to bring some huge guests like Jay, some people like him that's going to drop some bombs to you. You got to be there. You got to be there. Okay.